Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And I have two brief invitations for you. If you're a Facebook user and you love this show and you want to meet some like-minded people and just be able to talk about everything we talk about on these episodes, feel free to go to Facebook and type in the search box, We Don't Die Listeners. So it's a growing group and we're having a lot of fun in there. So I want you to join us. The second thing is I will be speaking live in Scottsdale, Arizona, September 15th through 17th, 2017, with 27 or 28 top people in the world of afterlife research and communication. It is called the Afterlife Research and Education Symposium. So if you're interested, or even if you can't attend, I encourage you to go to this website, afterlifestudies.org, and just check out some of the state-of-the-art things that are happening in the world of the afterlife. So today on the show, I'm pleased to introduce you to our guest, who is Reverend Kevin Lee. Kevin is a spiritual medium, healer, paranormal researcher, and senior minister of Metaphysical Chapel of South Florida in Fort Lauderdale. Today we'll be learning about Kevin's very interesting journey and why he believes there is no death and life continues on. And there's something else we're going to get into. It's something we've never spoken about on this show, and I don't even know too much about it. It's something called Precipitation Mediumship. Reverend Kevin Lee's website is kevinleemedium.com, and his chapel's website is metaphysicalchapel.com. So, Reverend Kevin Lee, welcome to We Don't Die Radio.
Thank you, Sandra. What a pleasure it is to hear your voice and just to be a part of this journey with you today. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I've heard such great things about you from mutual friends, and I have done some research on you, and you're up to some really big things in your community and worldwide. So where does your story begin? Are you always a Floridian?
Well, I tell you, I grew up in Texas. And I really, growing up, I never had any type of mystical experiences. I never had any psychic or ghostly encounters. Unfortunately, never was abducted by aliens, unfortunately. And I had a pretty dreamy childhood. I was a very kind-hearted, mystical child. And I knew that there was something out there. I just didn't know the world was called metaphysics. And eventually relocated for career in nursing to New York City, and then for graduate school, I relocated to South Florida to pursue one of my lifelong dreams to become a nurse anesthetist. And so I completed that journey in 2006 around Christmas time, and I received my nurse practitioner's license, my nurse anesthetist license. So a huge, huge accomplishment. I really am amazed that I was able to achieve that. And so just a few months after that, now during that time, because I was so involved in school, I really had very little opportunity because of the intensity of the programs to venture out and really see what all this psychic world was all about. I had heard some things about it and had been reading some books about it. I'd seen some TV shows about it, and I was interested. But for me, myself, I didn't really recognize that I had any potential. And but I did have a sense, this inner knowing, that always guided me to great things. Always good things came out of it when I followed that gut instinct. And so it was probably in June of 2007, I was sitting at home by myself, and that presence, that feeling came over me, and I recognized it, but I thought, wait a minute, I feel as though it wants me to get in my car and drive, and I have no place or purpose or direction to go, and that's not like me. And I thought, I'm going to honor it, jumped in my car, and then I said to the spirit world, I said, well, now what? Now I'm in the car. What am I supposed to do?
Where do I go?
I got this. Where do I go? What am I going to do? And I suddenly got the impression, drive south, and I thought, well, I don't have anywhere else to go, so I drove south. I drove out of Fort Lauderdale, past the airport, and I drove into this very sleepy little beach town called Dania Beach. I didn't really know much about the city, and as I was driving into the city, I noticed the strange sign on the building that said Metaphysical Chapel, and I thought, wait a minute, well, that's weird. Those words, those are so diametrically opposed.
Right.
How can those words possibly go together? Because I grew up Southern Baptist Christian, very conservative upbringing, and even some a little Catholicism in the family, and then also Church of Christ, so a whole lot of conservatism.
Yes.
And I just was so perplexed with these two words, and I barely drove past it, maybe a block further, and suddenly there was a barrier in front of me. I literally couldn't drive any further, and I thought, I've got to turn around. I've got to make a U-turn in this road and go back to this strange place. And so I did, and I pulled in the parking lot, looked in the window, saw all kinds of funny things in the bookstore from all religions, which really didn't make any sense to me. Why would all these religious symbols be in this bookstore window?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that they had church services and psychic fairs. And I thought, well, I like that idea of a psychic fair, and they have a church. How does that go together? It wasn't long after that I showed up for my church service. I witnessed a woman give a metaphysical interpretation of Bible scripture, which was exactly what my soul had been seeking since I was a child. I didn't know that was the words. And my soul came alive in that experience, and I realized I found my home. Oh. And then later after that service, that same female minister, and I had never seen a female minister before, so that really blew my mind too. And this woman gave messages from Spirit, and I wish I could remember what she told me, but I remember how shocked and amazed I was at what I was experiencing inside a church.
Yes.
And I thought, well, how is this even possible that churches allow this?
Right.
So that began my journey. At that time, the church was a little more focusing on spiritualism, which you understand what that is, the religion of spiritualism. And our church system had originally evolved 50 years ago out of the religion of spiritualism. And for different reasons, the founder just decided to change the name so that we could be a separate entity. And we called ourselves Divine Metaphysicians, the religion of divine metaphysics.
Okay.
And but we had such close ties with spiritualism, and we hold dear all of the principles of spiritualism, and some are expounded upon. And we work at the core of our teaching, at the core of our offerings to the really the community, the world, is that continuity of life after the change called death. That is our core teaching. That's why we. And so out of that, I eventually moved into studying in seminary within our church system. We have a 4-year seminary program.
Wow, great!
I went ahead and signed up for the 3-year training program to become a certified medium, and also as a certified a spiritual healer within our program. And so our mother church is the United Metaphysical Churches. That's up in Roanoke, Virginia, and it's a wonderful place of education and training and community, just a safe, beautiful place to spread your wings and really unfold. In its own right, it's a mini Arthur Findlay. It's the same premise. They're trying to provide a place of retreat, a spiritual retreat, where you can go to learn healing, psychic unfoldment, mediumistic unfoldment, to become a minister for your church or your community, and also just to become a leader within your community. So
what's the name? What's the name of that place? United?
Sure. United Metaphysical Churches, and it's located in Roanoke, Virginia.
Good to know about. Great.
Wonderful, wonderful opportunity. A place anyone can go and partake of all the programs and the metaphysical courses. You do not have to join up for the seminary program. They offer retreat without credits, but you can still take these courses, which are truly wonderful.
Great.
So that's where I suddenly was enrolled in taking all these courses, and then before I knew it, the minister at my church at the time decided to retire, and she said, well, now that you're going to be a deacon within seminary, you technically qualify to run the church, so I'm retiring, it's yours. And wow. I thought, are you kidding me? I only wanted the education, I only wanted the title, I didn't want to run the church, I just wanted to become mediumistic and increase my knowledge, and that's all I wanted. And then when I sat with Spirit, I realized Spirit brought me to this church for a very particular reason, and if I don't step up and let my light shine in this opportunity I'm being given, the light will be extinguished and the doors will be closed, and that opportunity will no longer exist in South Florida. And I thought, what do I want most in the world? I love sharing all of my experiences with people. I love sharing my knowledge with people. I love networking. I'm a huge networker. I'm always bringing all my friends from around the world with different psychic, mediumistic, healing, metaphysical abilities to demonstrate, to teach, to inspire, to help people unfold. So in my own way, I'm creating a center where people can also come and
Great.
really to develop the light within and to help it grow stronger and to guide them in a safe way, the way people guided me in a safe way. So I stepped into the position as the interim director, and the next year when I was ordained in fall of 2013, I was inducted as the minister for my church and have been the minister ever since. And I absolutely love my role. I really have grown into the role of being a minister in my community, and I take it very seriously, and I'm honored that Spirit would guide me into this role. 10 years ago, I would have bet everything I owned I would never become a minister in this sense. And here I am, 100% in it every single day, guiding my community forward, developing myself in ways I never would have dreamed.
Right.
And it just amazes me. I feel so blessed to be a part of this community, and part of the whole metaphysical world.
I laugh because, same thing, not in a million years would I ever think that I'd be doing what I'm doing.
Right.
And now having this conversation with you.
I hear
Never.
you. I hear you.
Wow. Kevin, do you still, are you full-time the minister there, or do you still
Yes.
work in nursing?
Yes, I basically have a professional career in anesthesia, and I hire myself out and work per diem and staff different, I do a lot of plastic surgery and spine surgery and general anesthesia type cases and local cases. So I do lots of different things locally, and then in the evenings and weekends, I'm running my church business. So
wow,
my
you're
ministry
a busy man.
it's every day. It never stops. I mean, even on my lunch breaks in the hospitals or in the offices, I'm taking calls. I'm planning future speakers. I'm trying to solve local problems. People are in crisis mode and trying to get resources for them, and it's a huge commitment. And I tell you what gives me strength is knowing, again, that Spirit put me in this position, and that there is a reason why my soul needs to be stretched this hard and this much, because I'm supposed to help these people in some capacity, and somehow it helps my soul evolve to a much greater level, so that maybe I don't have to come back the next time to experience this difficult life, but maybe it'll be a different type of expression in the next life. So who knows? But I get a lot of energy and get a lot of blessing from the work. So I definitely am running two careers at the same time.
Yeah, me too. But that's all right. We're stretched for a reason, and
part of
Spirit World knows we can handle it. Well, the name of our show is We Don't Die, and I know you probably have thousands of stories, but if somebody was a first-time listener here, they'd like to hear, why should they believe in life after death? Can you tell us a little bit on your journey of maybe some things you've experienced or witnessed, or where your passion lies, that that death is just an illusion, that we carry on?
I'll tell you what healed my spirit and what set me on this journey 100%. When I found my little church, you remember I told you that I had come from a background, very highly conservative Christian background, most of my life. And there was a period of time, because of a lot of church abuse and a lot of public issues and personal, attacks just for being who I was from the church systems, I really stepped away from the God principle, from the church, the mission of churches, and I was very anti all of that, anti-divinity, anti-church for a year, very angry about it. I was very angry, I'll admit that. And then, of course, my spirit began to call me back, and so I noticed as I was probably around 2000, roughly 2000, the year 2000, I was beginning to get this calling back to spirit. I could feel my spirit wanting a relationship with that principle of God, but I was so abused by those religious institutions and persons that I was struggling to go back into that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't understand how to have a relationship with that divine principle, because I didn't understand what it really meant. I just thought God was up there, a galaxy far, far away, and we were down here on Earth, and I better behave and all that. So when I found my church, a good 6 months went along, I began to slowly understand what is metaphysics, what is spiritualism, what is this world of spirit, and how do I really know that there is no death and that life continues on? You all say it, but how do I know it? So this was Christmas time, 2007, the minister of my church had asked me, she said, Kevin, you speak so well, you're very academically trained, would you write a sermon and deliver at church? And I said, wait a minute, I don't want to be a minister. And she says, no, we just want you to speak. Just give like a lecture. I said, well, I'll do that. So she talked me into writing a sermon. She wanted it to be on the birth of Jesus at Christmas time from the metaphysical perspective. I knew nothing about the metaphysical perspective. I only knew the Christian perspective and story and all the symbology. But she gave me a lot of books to read, probably about 8 big books. And within 2 weeks, I had gone through all of those books. I had written this beautiful sermon, turned it in on a Friday night. And on Saturday morning, I was signed up to attend my very first seance with Reverend Hoyt Robinette, who is, in my opinion, the #1 precipitation medium in the world, who still demonstrates publicly. And Hoyt Robinette, Reverend Robinette, he lives currently in Camp Chesterfield. And funny enough, I'm going to, after all these years, I am finally flying next week to Camp Chesterfield to do some research for my precipitation book. And I get to see him. So that's going to be a wonderful time, a gathering of friends.
Where is
He's a
that?
very dear friend of mine.
Where is
Camp Chesterfield is in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay.
So it's a suburb of that area. And it's a beautiful spiritualist camp with its own seminary program, training programs, retreat center.
Okay.
Wonderful place. I highly recommend it for anybody to at least visit a few times to have that experience. So I went to this seance. No one knew me. No one knew my background. No one knew what church I was at. No one knew anything about me. I barely had my name because I had to give my name to attend. And even that, there was no information about me anywhere to be had. And so I go to this event. Reverend Hoyt was blindfolded and psychometrizing and mediumistically connecting to these things called billets, pieces of paper where you write maybe a question to the spirit world, some names of loved ones or spirit guides that you would love to hear from that day, and then maybe on the outside your initials and date of birth. And that's how, on the outside, they can identify who is the owner of this billet without opening it and looking at the evidential details and questions inside.
Okay.
And so as he was going forward, he suddenly brought through an older woman, and this older woman had a man's name, and he said, this woman is, I feel as though she's a farm woman, and she's got a man's name, and she wants to speak to someone named Kevin. And I thought, well, maybe he saw my name on the list. Okay, let's see where this is going. So then he brings through her name, which shocked me. Then he brought through a lot of evidence about exactly the geography of her farm and structures near the farm and memories. And one of the things she came through and said was, well, I don't understand this church you're in. I don't know mediumship, but I'm going to learn with you. And I thought, wait a minute. My grandmother was so Southern Baptist Christian oriented, she would never have set foot in one of these churches. But if it's good enough for her, I don't have a problem with where I'm at.
Did he have her name right, Kevin?
Yes, he named her. He gave me her first name, her maiden name, and her family name, meaning her married name.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
So
that level of
evidence. It was very, just highly evidential. And what I didn't start off by saying was, at this point, at that period of time, I was literally probably weeks to maybe a month away from walking away from my church, walking away from everything I had been told, because I was so torn emotionally and spiritually by the fact that my Christian upbringing says this is the work of Satan, and I'm being fooled, and I'm going to offend God, and I'm increasing the level of sin in my life, and you know, anything psychic is against God, and the Bible says so. Well, I still no one had properly trained me into an understanding that a lot of things in the Bible were written by individuals that gave them more power. And so there was a lot of misconstrued information placed in different parts of the Bible. And there also was information just grossly mistranslated. And so I was really struggling because I did not want to be spiritually inappropriate. I was trying to return to the principle of God. So my grandmother came through, highly evidential. Then he says, I'm not being silly because it's Christmas, but do you realize you have Mother Mary and Father Joseph standing here in this moment telling me they are working with you on a very pivotal project at this point in time? Do you know what I mean? And I thought, are you kidding me? What? I can't believe he just said that. I know exactly what he's talking about. And I said, well, I'll tell you at the end, but I'm not going to tell you right now. Keep going with the message.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't give him anything. And he said that Mother Mary and Father Joseph had to say to me, you are exactly where we need you to be to help the most number of people. It will progress your soul so fast if you will stay in the church where you've landed. We realize you're struggling with the concept of the church, but trust us, you will help thousands if you just stay on this path. You do have free will to leave, and we will not be upset if you do. It's your choice. But we honor where you're at in life, and we want to support you in this journey, and we'll be with you on this journey.
Wow.
And it was interesting. I'd never really prayed to Mother Mary. I'd never prayed to Father Joseph. I knew who they were. I loved romantic stories. I loved the principle of who Jesus was, and as this amazing evolved soul on earth. And I realized in that moment, wait a minute, if it's good enough for Mother Mary and Father Joseph and my grandmother to come through this medium, this old man with this amazing ability, and he just literally just healed my heart. And then he said, Mother Mary and Father Joseph have a special Christmas gift for you this year. They're going to give you their likeness on a card. And what happened was, as the evening finished, the cards came out, and I received the most spectacular Renaissance-style painting of Mother Mary and Father Joseph on this small 3x5 card. My grandmother signed the card, Mother Mary and Father Joseph signed the card, and a couple of other guides. I didn't even know who they were at the time. Now I know who they are. But when I went home, I thought, what the heck just happened to me? What the heck is this? What's going on? And it so healed my spirit and healed my mind, and I realized I'm not alone in the world. And in these saintly figures, and even my grandmother's, who I thought was dead, she's still alive, and she just spoke to me, and I'm totally transformed. And if what this minister could do for me and those other people, if he can do that, I want to do exactly what this old man has just done for me.
Yes.
I want to do that, and I want to transform people's lives with whatever this ability is he has.
Right.
And that was literally what set me on my path and what began my journey. And that's why I'm so passionate about precipitation mediumship. It totally transformed my life.
Absolutely. I want to back up just 1 second, because this question comes up a lot. People do feel that getting involved with life after death things really is going against the religion, going against the Bible. I have never heard anybody talk about that the Bible was mistranslated, and that and that there's stuff in there that people who wanted power. Can you just, for just a minute or two, just
Sure.
because I think this will help many of us, because a lot of people say if it's in the Bible, it's the truth.
I know. We had to study these principles in seminary and in some of the extra courses that we took. But what I will say is this: the Bible was a book of books, 66 books in particular, and in 350 A.D. approximately, the Council of Nicaea, and the emperor at the time, I believe his name was Constantinople, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It could be Constantine, but anyway, they got together, the clergy and and they put together what we call the Bible today. A lot of books were purposely not placed in the current Bible. Those are called the Gnostic texts. There was way too much mysticism and a lot of very strange phenomena within them, and so those were conveniently left out. And within our Bible, there's a lot of principles that talk about how you should not see psychics and seers, you should not consult with the dead, and so forth. Right. That it's an abomination and it's the work of the devil, or it's sinful by nature. And isn't it interesting that the main figure of the book of the Bible, Jesus, was a medium? Jesus demonstrated every single mediumistic and psychic and healing ability out there. He had all of the five clairs, the five sisters as we call them, clairaudience, clairvoyance, clairsentience, and so forth. And Jesus purposely chose his disciples. Those 12 men were not chosen because of their name. They weren't chosen because of their titles. They weren't chosen because of the assets or the monies they had. They weren't chosen because of the families they were from. They were not even really chosen because of their professions or careers, what they did for a living. They were chosen for who they were. And they were all troubled souls trying to find their way in the world, But what's most important is he chose them because they were all mediumistic. And these disciples were given the instructions, go out and do as I do, because what I do, you will do even greater things. He was referencing, Jesus was speaking about the gifts of the Spirit. So he gave his disciples, who were technically not divine, according to biblical scholars, but metaphysically we understand we all carry the divine flame within each one of us. But biblically speaking, from the conservative and fundamental standpoint, these were just basic human beings who became devout followers of the man Jesus. But he gave them the ability, he taught them the principles of how to unfold their natural mediumistic abilities. They were able to cast out spirits, they were able to heal, they were able to raise the dead, they were able to bring forth various types of psychic phenomena, remote viewing, prophecy, and whatnot. So isn't it interesting? You know, so many people say, "Oh, it's a sinful act to consult with psychics and do psychic work." Well, Jesus didn't get that email because he clearly demonstrated all of those gifts of spirit, if you want to call them that. Yes. And then he told his disciples, average human beings, just like you and I, he told them to go out and do it. So that's where you get this whole concept of, in the Bible, where one part will say one thing and another part will say another, which contradicts it. And so if it was good enough for this ascended master and his disciples, why is it not good enough for the rest of the people? And the reason why, I'll be very honest, is because when in the Bible it was conveniently left in because it allows the powers that be, the church leaders and the government leaders of the time, it allowed them to maintain power and control over the people, because if they understood the truth that God was within and not without, in other words, outside the body, if they understood that they could meditate to unfold their natural connection to that principle of God, or to unfold their natural abilities, they'd no longer need the priests, they'd no longer need the churches, they'd no longer need religious institutions, because they could access all of that divinity and those gifts of spirit on their own. So it takes the power away from the pulpit, as I say, and places the power in the pews with you, the attendees. And I remind people at church all the time, just because I have a title and I'm standing here in the pulpit doesn't mean that I have all the answers. I'm learning along with you. Yes, I have a title. Yes, I've done the work. But my job is to light your light. You're to go and do the work. You're to pray to God, to ask for, you should be, say, for instance, if we hurt somebody or do something wrong or do something that causes a lot of heartache, it's not about us praying to God to solve that problem. We need to step into the spiritual action of actually doing the work to solve that issue with the other person, going directly to the person. Don't come to the minister, don't come to the priest, don't come to the rabbi, don't come to the imam begging them to ask God for forgiveness. You need to do the work yourself. And so that is an example of how we take the power out of the pulpit and place it in the pews, and that's exactly what the religious leaders of old did not want to happen. So they would maintain the power by by inserting and allowing these conflicting scriptures to remain in the Bible.
Man, am I ever glad
yep.
You're talking about this.
I know, this is kind of heavy stuff, but really, Jesus had no issue with it. The disciples had no issue with it. Mm-hmm. Mother Mary, Father Joseph. Jesus, a lot of people don't even realize, but Jesus came from a group of Jews called the Essenes, and these Essenes were very known to, they meditated, they were highly mystical, they were all about unfolding their natural abilities to heal, to psychically connect, to mediumistically connect with the spirit world of life. And so they were a very mystical branch of Judaism. And that's why they were frowned upon, because they created their own form of Judaism at the time. They didn't have the word Christianity back then. And Jesus came from that upbringing. So it makes sense why he was born into that soul family in that tribe of Essenes, because they gave him the ingredients that he needed to unfold his soul to its greatest potential. And so he was a truly beautiful example. Love it.
Really great. And one thing that is important in you sharing is that I stress this a lot on these episodes, for us to all look for our own truths. And I think just by nature, we have parents, and many of us I grew up in Catholicism, and we get our beliefs at a very young age, so we don't end up ever challenging them. And then, older in life, here we are starting to
That's right.
dabble in this, and we never, we take all that stuff we learned so early as the truth, and
That's
don't
exactly right.
challenge it. So I'm not telling anybody that they have to believe in this conversation or even not to believe, but to go on your
Hmm.
own journey within and find the truth. And just because it's written, or even whether we say it on a show like this, whether it's written in a
Right.
book or the Bible or
Right.
wherever, go for your own truths. But this
Spirit,
is
spirit,
great.
spirit always, you're right. Spirit always says to us in circle, in seance, they will say, every religion has a reason for existing on this planet. There's a reason why it came forward through the prophets of the time.
Hmm.
There is a vibration that certain souls need, and that is why certain individuals gravitate towards Buddhism, Islam, Southern Baptists, maybe Episcopalians, divine metaphysicians, spiritualism, spiritism. Everybody really resonates towards a type of religion or philosophical existence that their soul needs in this life. And so the Spirit will say to us, they'll say those teachings, but they'll also say, if you enter, say for instance, you enter a new church, you're testing out churches in your community, and a lot of them don't feel right to you, but suddenly you walk into one and everything that everybody's saying, the vibration of the space, the message, the minister, the type of religion coming forward, it just awakens your soul. You have found exactly the religion you need to follow
Hmm.
at this point in your life. You
Right.
may outgrow it at a later date, but at this point in life, go with the flow. You're
Yes.
exactly where you need to be. So I definitely tell people, if you are coming to me and you're Catholic and you're placing your toes into the water of metaphysics or spiritualism, and it fascinates you, there's no reason why you cannot participate in both. But eventually, because of the higher truth principles and the resonance of the teachings, it will lift you up out of the lower vibrational religions that are a little more fear-based, a little bit more creed and dogma focused. And when you step into the higher vibrational religious or philosophical offerings that are more positive based, love based, and they don't teach the principles of sin and damnation and such and guilt, you'll find that you'll no longer have an affinity to that lower vibrational religious expression.
Wow. Terrific. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for shedding some
You're
light on
welcome.
this, because this is important.
You're
This is
welcome.
very important. Anyways, let's get now into what the heck is precipitation mediumship?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So everybody asks this question. No one has any clue. I'm amazed you even know Reverend Hoyt Robinette. He's a dear friend of mine. This Reverend Hoyt Robinette started many years ago, and he told me the story that he had witnessed a gentleman by the name of Bill English demonstrate precipitation card mediumship. And I say card mediumship. I'm going to explain that a little further in a bit. But precipitation mediumship in particular, where these colors, these writings, these images would materialize onto cards, paper stock, maybe canvas, and it really shocked him, but it showed him that there was a continuity of life because of the evidence coming through this form of mediumship. It was a very physical, beautiful, very pretty, colorful demonstration of mediumship. And so I'll back up a little bit. Precipitation mediumship, when we talk about a precipitate, think about science. Think about all those years ago back in high school when we talked about precipitates in chemistry class. A precipitate is something that condenses out of a solution and it falls as a deposit. And some examples of that might be rain. You can think of snow. You can think of even ash,
Hmm.
oddly enough. And I say ash because actually some of the phenomena feels very ashy. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. And so this precipitation, it takes place because through the power of the medium, their spirit personalities or their guides or their teachers that are working with them from the spirit side of life have begun to work with the chemistry of the medium, the spiritual energies of the medium, the psychic and mediumistic energies of the medium, and they basically will pull and manipulate the life force of the medium, the ectoplasmic life force, out through the solar plexus into, I want to say, like a container, a box, a basket, something that prevents light from entering inside. Now, we know from other mediumistic experiences that light destroys ectoplasm. And the ectoplasm being the life force of the medium, but it's a physicalized form of that life force. That ectoplasm will enter into these boxes or baskets that the medium typically will hold either on their lap or under their chair, maybe on a table next to them while they're doing their demonstration. And within those boxes and baskets, the mediums will typically have the most basic is crayons, colored pencils. You might have a regular pencil with some lead in it. You could even have a block of charcoal. You could have acrylic paint, oil pastels. You could have Sharpies and markers that are permanent. And I've even seen people use gel pens. That's actually one of my favorites because my students literally get to see extracted ink and missing elements within the gel pen over the course of a few months. And so it really gives them almost like it dangles a carrot in front of them that something's actually happening. They can see results in front of them. They may not be getting the phenomena on their papers, on their little cards that they place in their baskets and their boxes, but the pigment is disappearing from the instrument of the pens or the crayons or the markers.
Wow. So
that's really how precipitation mediumship takes place. Now, what I will tell you is, why is it so important? Why is it so amazing? Well, I love art. I love artistic expression. And what is so amazing to me is that Spirit is able to manipulate something in our physical realm, the colors, the crayons, the paints, whatnot. They're able to dematerialize these colored media. They take them into the spirit world, into the ethers. They intelligently manipulate them. In other words, they rearrange them and they lay it back down. They physically rematerialize it onto your card, paper, or canvas material that you're using as a display, something for the color to lay upon. And so they will lay it down intelligently. You could have smudges of color. You could have sprinklings of color. You could have dots and scratches and strange lines on the canvas. You can have faces appear, full faces, recognizable faces, faces of such quality you would swear they were Xeroxed when they're not. That high of photographic quality. You will see signatures and handwriting that matches signatures that might be in a museum. You will see humor coming through this demonstration, the evidence. You will see scientific creativity in the way that they will take some of the, say for instance, if I threw glitter into my basket and told Spirit, I want you to incorporate and blend this glitter into my card precipitation, I have seen glitter fused into paper and pigment. It wasn't very pretty. I don't recommend it, but it was an interesting experiment that their guide did for them. So that's kind of a really good way of explaining what is precipitation mediumship. It is Spirit laying down these colored pigments in such a way that they intelligently bring forward evidence that there is continuity of life after the change called death. And if there's really not evidence in the phenomena, in my opinion, why even bother? It is pretty, but if Spirit's going to go to that much trouble, I should be pushing my guides, my teachers, my loved ones in the higher realms of life. I want you to be evidential in what you bring forward because I want to know that this book project I'm working on, I want to know that I'm on the right path. I want to know that you do still think of me, that I'm not the last one in my family still on earth. I want to hear from you. I want to see pretty hearts and flowers, my favorite flower drawn for me. I want to see a beautiful symbol or a piece of jewelry, a drawing of a piece of jewelry you might have worn that you crossed into the spirit world with. Amazing things like that will come through. Biblical scripture that really, literally resonates with what you're going through in life at this point. Biblical scripture or beautiful prose or poetry will come through that Spirit has laid down in some fashion into the beautiful, colorful presentation of the phenomena on the card or the paper or the canvas. So that is precipitation mediumship. It is definitely very rare because I've done quite a bit of extensive research. I have come across 3 individuals in particular, and they're all in the United States. They're all friends of one another, and they all demonstrate to different degrees of greatness. This form of card writing mediumship, and I will say card writing because what these mediums enjoy using as just a canvas, for lack of a better word to use. So basically, it's a 3x5 index card that's pure white, and so that is a very quite affordable and easily accessible way to ask Spirit to place this beautiful phenomena onto these cardstock, and then you can display that in glass frames or on your bedside. They're easy to scan. You can place them in beautiful photo display books, and it seems to be really the easiest way for them to lay something down on something very convenient. We all have access to index cards.
So let me just, just because I'm trying to visualize this whole thing. So say when you're with Hoyt Robinette,
Yes.
you did say that you put your initials and a question on a card, and he goes blindfolded, and he can actually, pick up a card, and for you, he brought your grandmother's name, said Kevin, and all these details. Did you?
Those were billets.
Billets. Okay. Did you? Were there also at some point now some blank index cards had to go into a basket, right?
Yes, absolutely. So the way we train students is this. Reverend Hoyt taught me this.
I love that you're training students. By the way, let me just.
I love it.
Like,
I love
oh my
it.
gosh, you are training people to do this. Fantastic.
And what we do is we tell the student to get your little box. The best thing to use, and I'll tell your listeners, is this: go get a shoebox. Everybody's got a shoebox in their closet. Now, a shoebox will prevent light from coming inside of it. You have to make sure that there's no grommets on the side or any handles on the side of the shoebox. It just needs to have a rectangular or square shape. It could even be round, even like a hat box. Those are quite large. I like a shoebox for my students. And so you have a lid, which creates the dark environment, which is really like a little seance room in that shoebox, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so for your inside the shoebox, you will place, well, let's see, before we do that, I'll say this. I like my students to be inspired. I tell them that you can either paint your shoebox, to paint it something pretty, put something nice on there, decoupage your shoebox, or go get some fun Christmas paper or Hanukkah paper, or go get some birthday paper and wrap your box with some crazy stuff, something that will make you laugh every time you see it and smile, and that will raise the vibration of happiness, which is very important. That's your heart chakra. That helps us connect with Spirit even more. So I want you to be joyful every time you pick up this Spirit box. Now, once the box is open, the students are to place in, say, crayons, colored pencils. Students don't need to put in a lot of material at first, because the Spirit should not be overwhelmed with all of these coloring instruments. So I just tell the students to get a box of 12 or 24 crayons, a box of 12 or 24 colored pencils. If you want to throw in a Sharpie marker, or go get some gel pens so you can actually see the ink inside the pen, throw some of those in there. Now, what we do is we put a small handful of coloring instruments right down, those crayons or markers. Then we put a little layer of maybe 3 or 5 blank white index cards. Then we take another handful of colored instruments, crayons or markers, drop those on top of those cards, and we begin to layer it like a lasagna. Okay?
Yeah.
And so once you feel you have enough color and coloring instruments and the index cards, you can place the lid on it and begin the process of sitting every day for the next umpteen years. You really only need 15 to 20 minutes of sitting time, focusing on and setting the intention of developing precipitation mediumship. One of my dear friends, who is he's one of the last ones to develop precipitation mediumship, is Reverend Justin Terry. He's at our sister church in Palm Beach, the United Metaphysical Church of the Palm Beaches. And it took him approximately just under 7 years to develop precipitation mediumship, and it came forward spectacularly, so beautiful, so evidential. It was just unbelievable. His Reverend Hoyt and Reverend Hoyt took about 17 years to develop his, sitting every single day for 30 minutes. And Reverend Justin's mentor, who is a phenomenal precipitation mediumship who demonstrates card writing these abilities, he took also about 15, 16, maybe 17 years as well to develop. So it possibly could take a long time You have to be very patient. This is not something you typically will see express forward in your mediumship in a matter of weeks or months. It is possible. Anything's possible. But for the average person, it will take a lot of dedication and patience and just trusting in divine time, everything in divine time. So
Wow.
that's basically how the cards develop.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, I have seen students go home and have phenomena take place. It wasn't profound, but it was a lot of smudges and scratches and things which showed me they had great potential, because on their first or second sitting, they had already the most basic, the most elementary of phenomena expressing forward. That was a great sign for them.
Well, let me just ask,
Okay.
when we sit now with the 15 to 20 minutes, the intention of
Mm-hmm.
developing precipitation mediumship. Okay, so we put that, we feel good, we're joyous,
Yep.
we've got our great box, we've got our lasagna effect with
Yep.
the markers and stuff in the paper, the cards.
Yep.
When
Yep.
we close our eyes, we have the intention, but do we at that point just quiet our mind, or are we actively
Yes.
thinking something? We just quiet our
No,
mind?
you should not even be visualizing that your cards are manifesting, that spirit hands are working with these cards. And actually, that's another funny question people ask me. Do spirits create tiny little baby hands in the boxes to paint these pictures? No, they don't. They actually, Spirit says they use waves of energy. And in my lectures, I point out evidence of the waves of energy, because there's stray lines that shoot across the cards sometimes on the writing side. But you basically just sit in meditation for 15, 20 minutes. You just set the intention verbally with your guides in your space. You can sit in a room full of light. You can sit in pitch black. It doesn't matter. What matters is that there is darkness inside your box or your basket. No light can enter into that space where the work is being done by Spirit. And so they will begin to extract that ectoplasm from your body and from the surrounding elements, maybe plants in the room or even inanimate objects, and they begin to work on laying the pigment back down intelligently onto your card or your paper stock. So you really just sit with an empty mind, just try to sit in the power of Spirit, and just trust that Spirit is working exactly as they need to. So you really don't need to be visualizing or trying to psychically force the phenomena to come into being by running through the alphabet and physically drawing in your mind every letter in the alphabet, or painting pictures in your mind. You don't need to be doing that. You just sit in the power with an empty mind as much as you can, and just sit in that power with Spirit drawing around you and allow them to do the work. You don't really have to do much. It's that easy.
What I'm getting out of this, really, because we've been talking on a lot of the last previous episodes of the importance of clearing the mind, meditating, sitting in the power. And if we're going to be doing that anyways, why not have a shoebox sitting next to us?
Absolutely. You can do that. Absolutely. You do double duty.
Why not? I mean, really, truly. And now when we're talking about pictures, I did a little search online to see some of these cards. There's names. There's they look like photographs. There's some pictures that look like paintings. There's some that have multiple people's faces within them. People reporting, that was my grandmother. This is so and so. And this is miraculous stuff.
It truly is. You know what? It's funny you mentioned the word miraculous, because a few days ago in my sermon I was discussing the principles of miracles in the Bible, and how a lot of people have been, because they don't understand the metaphysical interpretation of any Holy Scripture, really, and of the spirit world. What I would say is the word miracle. The word miracle is really, it doesn't exist. There are no miracles. These prophets access universal natural laws that are eternal laws. So the prophets are able to access and unfold whatever they're trying to create, say manna from heaven, or to multiply fish and bread, to turn water into wine. These weren't miraculous events, raising the dead. It was simply accessing divine natural laws that are in existence for all of eternity. And you see a lot of this also when you study yogic books by swamis and yogis, and they talk about all of the phenomena that you see in the Bible. You see all of it within yogic scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita, various books by yogis and swamis. They will talk about all of these so-called miraculous things. They're not miraculous. It's just the yogis have, through their meditational processes connected with that cosmic consciousness that most of us call God or Allah or Great Spirit. And because they're able to access that, they have access to all of those universal laws, and they understand how to bring them into unfoldment in this physical dimension for whatever benefit they're trying to incorporate or to bring forward. So that's very important for people to understand, is that yes, spirit can precipitate these beautiful, beautiful paintings, beautiful, stunning photographic quality. I'm telling you, I wish you could see my collection. I have photographic quality images of loved ones in spirit, and there are no physical images of that person. They don't exist. They're only the only images that loved ones have are in computers. And yet these photographic quality images are appearing on beautiful paper cardstock in these seances, and it's transforming people's lives.
But they're the real people. You recognize them.
I know them.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's people, because I did some research on this, and I know because we've been talking about physical mediumship and trance mediumship, and yesterday I spoke to Carl Jackson Barnes about Leslie Flint and all these voices that came through. There's so many naysayers, and there's people, there's some fraud alert, something about Hoyt Robinette, that these are all computer graphics, and he's the biggest sleight of hand
I've read
artist.
That website too.
Oh yeah, but they're out there for everything. So I mean, it's
well, I'll tell you, the brighter your light, the more bugs that are attracted to you.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard that. Say that again.
The brighter your light, the more bugs that are attracted to you.
Oh my gosh.
And it's really true because, yes, Reverend Hoyt is a very dear friend of mine. In the very beginning, I could have sworn I've even told him this. He knows this. I told him I thought he was a master magician. I couldn't figure out how he was swindling all these people and getting those cards in that basket. Even when the basket was literally within feet of me the whole time, how did all those cards enter into the basket when we watched blank cards go into the basket?
Right.
I have seen this phenomena so many times now over the last 10 years that I know it's a legitimate phenomena. I know that it's real. I have several friends. I have 5 friends, actually 6 friends now, who are demonstrating this type of mediumship in different ways. And I've even witnessed the phenomena come forward when I have sat in my own mediumship development for precipitation, because of my passion for my church and because of all that I do in my own academic career. Unfortunately, a lot of my energy has left me and gone into those external endeavors. I don't have the energy at present to produce precipitation. One day it will come back. And that's okay. At least I can teach about it and write about it and document it and share it, because I know it's real, and no one can tell me otherwise. So that's what I want to say about that. Yes, anything is possible if you just believe. Where 2 or more are gathered, God is definitely present. The spirit world is always around us, but that power is magnified when 2 people sit with a spiritual intention, and that's what that means metaphysically. Where 2 or more are gathered, God is present. It just means that your power is magnified when you get together and work with will with spirit.
Which, I'm wondering if 2 people, well, I'm thinking there's of the physical medium seances and people that sit in circle, that it's usually 2 or more people sitting, having the intention. And I'm just wondering, in the case of precipitation, card writing mediumship, if we did have somebody that we sat together and
absolutely
had our box.
Absolutely. That is called a home development circle. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's exactly, we're such a drive-through society, and one of the problems that I see even my fellow students when I'm taking classes, but in addition to my students, they want the mediumship, they want their healing, they want their psychic abilities to unfold so quickly, and yet they're not willing to do the time and to sit in development circles with colleagues who are trying to develop something also. You need to be sitting once, if not twice a week, every single week, with a gathering of your closest friends who are trying to unfold themselves psychically, healing-wise, or mediumistically. And you need to sit in that power. Maybe you have a special evening where you sit, you and your best friend who are fascinated with precipitation mediumship, and you both wish to unfold your natural ability that you have, Maybe, yes, you're in the baby stages, but you and this other person will sit every Wednesday at 7 p.m., and you'll sit for 30 minutes only, and that's what you promise to do going forward until it unfolds. And that is very powerful. If you can get 3 or 4 or 5 or 8, go for it. The more the better, but it all needs to be focused on the same type of energy that evening. You can't mix and match different types of what you hope to develop in the circle. You really need it to be focused upon precipitation if that's what you're seeking.
Yeah, I'm glad
Okay, and then,
this is important stuff
yep.
because I know even talking to people about physical mediumship, there's so
Mm-hmm.
many naysayers out there that it can't be
Yes,
true. And you know,
that's
yeah,
true.
there's people that have been proven frauds. So of course that's
Yes,
been,
I agree.
yeah,
I've
they're
caught
out
some.
there.
I've been down that road. I'm
Yeah.
always a skeptic, even with my friends. I watch them like hawks and make sure that they're not being inappropriate. And I have a reputation to uphold myself.
Yeah.
And I expect what comes forward through my network. I expect it to be of legitimate, high quality, professional quality, and I want no funny business. So
No
I
funny
expect
business.
no. I expect the highest and best. And so when I talk about precipitation, what I didn't tell you was that there are actually multiple types of precipitation that a lot of people, probably everybody, a lot of people know Reverend Hoyt Robinette and his style of what we call card writing precipitation mediumship.
Hmm.
It's basically the cards. On one side is all of the spirit writing, your name, sometimes beautiful poetry and prose or biblical scripture. And on the back side is the bonus side, which is typically the most beautiful side with pictures, paintings, drawings, spectacular works, and it's all through spirit intelligence that is created. Now, that is called card writing. What some people will probably remember are the Campbell brothers and the Bang sisters, and even Henry Slade from the 1800s. There was slate writing mediumship. Remember that?
No, say that
Right?
again.
You remember slate writing? Remember children's
Slate
uh,
writing.
slate writing
It's
back in the
like little
1800s?
chalkboard kind of things, right?
Yes,
Okay.
remember those? Those were the laptops of the days. They could only have one screen of chalk, and they had to wipe it off, and they'd have to start all over again. Well, that was because slate was it's a type of rock. It was very common, and it was much more affordable than actual paper and pens and inks and things like that. They barely had pencils. They had a lot of access to chalk and slate, and so all the schools would use that. Well, mediums began to realize that spirit was writing on the slates. So mediums developed a form of communication with the world of spirit in the 1800s, and it really has even progressed to today. I know people still doing slate writing. And spirit would draw these beautiful pictures of flowers, landscapes. They would write in multiple languages on one slate board. There's evidences of that in different books. You can find some books by Ron Nagy, Nagy, who talks about that phenomena as well. And slate writing really began this whole phenomena of precipitation in the last 150 plus years. Another type of phenomena that is common among spiritualist camps and mediums is it has many names, but it's called spirit flame messages. A lot of people also call them fairy flame messages or smoke billet messages. It's just got a bunch of different names.
Okay.
Basically, it is a postcard. I would recommend only using a postcard type paper, for lack of a better word, because paper is too thin and it will catch fire too easy. But use something that's more like poster board. And you wave that over the flame of a candle, and the smoke will precipitate onto that postcard stock. And through the mediumistic ability of the medium who is manipulating that postcard over the flame, spirit will precipitate pictures. I've seen words slowly appear, small words, but I've seen them appear in the smoke. I have seen colors that do not exist in the candle. I've seen a white candle being used with a flame, and yet the color was red or almost like a lavender red color appear on the card. That's through precipitation. I've seen gold flecks of paint, some type of a gold or brass material suddenly appearing in the precipitated smoke on the billet, okay, on that smoke flame billet. And so that is another type of precipitation mediumship that you can see that on the internet. Reverend Hoyt also demonstrates another type of precipitation called silk precipitation. Have you ever heard of silk precipitation?
I have not.
No? Okay.
Silk?
So we take a type of material that feels like silk. It's actually a synthetic polyester type cloth by the name of silk, and it comes out of China, I believe. But anyway, this material is probably the best to use if somebody wants to develop silk precipitation. And what happens is these little 8-inch square silks are cut, and everyone receives one. You hold it in your lap by your thumb and your index finger of both hands. So you're holding the left and right corner against your solar plexus or right in your lap. And the medium will open 4 containers of writer's ink, like a black ink, a yellow ink, a blue ink, and a red ink. Those will be placed on a table in front of the room. The lights will go out. The medium will sit down in a chair and enter a light trance and begin to deliver messages from spirit, just random messages. And during that time, you will sometimes feel this almost like, I know it's ectoplasm, but there's a force that grabs your silk that you're holding and will tug on it. And that is the ectoplasmic field that is laying these images down, and eventually once the medium is told that by spirit that the images have now been laid down and precipitated into every attendee's silks in the room, he walks around with a red torchlight, like a little red flashlight, and very dimly shines it onto your silks that you're holding that you never let go of. And there are the images on your silk. All faces, colored faces, black and white faces. Some are big, some are small, some are fuzzy because they didn't develop properly. And you could have 1 or 2 pictures, 1 or 2 faces. You may have 20 faces on your little silk cloth. And then because they are so freshly created, they must be protected from sunlight or direct light. So they are to be then rolled up in a construction paper, light-proof sheet of paper, a rubber band placed around that. So you've got your silk inside that rolled-up construction paper. And then by the next morning or next evening, you can unfold them, and they will have set, and now light won't destroy them. Now, definitely sunlight destroys a lot of things, so you can't leave your silk precipitates anywhere near a sunlight for extended periods of time, weeks or months, because it will fade them. But that is a beautiful form of evidence from the spirit world of life, because a lot of times people will recognize their loved ones or their best friends, even coworkers that have gone to spirit, and they will precipitate their faces onto these silks. It's only faces.
Wow.
So that's a beautiful form of precipitate.
I'm so quiet. My mouth is wide open like, oh my gosh.
Well, you better pick your mouth up because I've got more to tell you.
Okay, keep going. Wow.
One of my good friends from Facebook that I found 5 years ago, and I'll give him his name to you in just a moment. He has coined a term which he calls breath mediumship. Okay? And
Breath?
What is a breath?
Yeah.
A breath is full of moisture. A breath is full of air and oxygen and different things. And so when you breathe out of your body into a cold night, what happens? You see a precipitate, which is your breath in the night sky, right?
Yeah.
One night in Canada, this buddy of mine was walking through the mountains, and he had this feeling that spirit was around him, and he suddenly felt like he needed to breathe into the air and take a photograph of his breath. And he thought, well, that's strange, but I'll do it. He began to take pictures, and he noticed there appeared to be shapes and faces in his breath. And he thought, oh, that's really a coincidence. And as he continued to do it night after night after night, within a couple of months, he started getting really spectacular images, almost photographic quality images of faces appearing inside his breath in the night sky against this, black night sky. So the flash will catch the water vapor, the precipitate in the air, and the black of the night sky is a beautiful medium to have that breath be lit up on, okay? Incredible. And so he calls that breath mediumship. Some people have even called it vapor mediumship because breath is a vapor. I want your listeners to support him. Go look at his website. It is www.vapor, breath, BREATH dash photography.com. His name is Christopher Abbott, and he lives in Vancouver, British Columbia, and his work is spectacular. He has teamed up with a young woman who is she's very computer savvy with these imaging software programs. She takes the image that he has captured, and she will bring it forward in such a way that it's even stronger and more profound. And then she'll add some beautiful elements around it just to give it a bit of beautiful pop and beauty to the image. The work is spectacular, and I'm telling you, it is incredibly evidential of life after death. When you see these images, I always hear people gasp when they see the images.
Oh, I
But
can't
it's called breath mediumship. Okay.
Kevin,
So,
just a little, let me just tell our listeners,
yes.
this is episode 185. And if you go to my website, which is wedon'tdieradio.com, and click on episode 185, I've got both under, if you follow the link to this episode on YouTube, in the description, there's some live links that you can actually click on to see these pictures, to visit these websites, to learn more. So I just really want to encourage you, go to We Don't Die Radio, click on episode 185, and I do have all the live links to this to make it easy. So if you don't want to rewind and write all this down, you don't have to. Okay, back to you, Kevin.
Beautiful. So we covered breath mediumship, and really, I want the listeners to also realize that there is another form of precipitation mediumship, which is really it's pretty straightforward. It is demonstrated by a lot of the precipitation mediums, and that is spirit writing. Now, when we talk about precipitation, we talk about spirit writing. So many people always come up to me, or they're always raising their hands, and they're saying, "Oh yes, I do spirit writing. I'm psychic. I get psychically inspired, and I write beautiful poetry and prose and draw pretty pictures and paint pretty paintings." Well, that's not what I'm talking about. When I talk about precipitation mediumship, when I talk about spirit writing, I talk about it from the standpoint that spirit is 100% in control of causing the phenomena to come forward. No human hand is ever involved in creating these beautiful works of art or the beautiful prose and poetry of the spirit writing. Okay? Mm-hmm. So it's very important to understand. And, what's interesting is I like to bring up the fact that we have this rich 150 plus years of experience with precipitation, starting with Henry Slade and David the Good over from Scotland. We have the Kimball brothers. We have the Baines sisters. Everybody knows the famous Baines sisters. And then it pushes on and on. But even before that, from ancient times, I noticed in my studies of the Bible that there were some very peculiar psychic phenomena that was listed in the Bible that reminded me of mediumship. Did you ever stop to think about in the Bible the Ten Commandments? What was that? That was a form of spirit writing. Mm-hmm. And they materialized on these tablets, which supposedly materialized themselves. So when we talk about the Ten Commandments, that's from an ancient standpoint, probably one of the oldest examples of precipitated spirit writing that was given to the medium who was that? Moses. Moses was a medium. And that was probably in the 1400 BC era. And then when we push into the 850 BC era, we actually have another example of precipitation that came forward, and that was when a letter appeared to the king of Judah from Elijah the prophet, who had been dead for several years, and that appears in the book of Chronicles, the second book of Chronicles, chapter 21, verse 12. That's where you'll find an example of spirit writing. Now, of course, that would have precipitated onto some form of parchment or paper. And another example that I like to share with your listeners is in the book of Daniel. Daniel was a prophet, a mystic, a seer, who had been thrown into the dungeon in the city of Babylon. And in this story, in the book of Daniel, chapter 5, verse 5, this strange hand appeared in the wall and began to write on the wall in a strange and foreign tongue. Well, none of the mystics and the seers of the king at the time could interpret it, but the queen knew that Daniel was in the dungeon and sent for Daniel to come and interpret. Daniel was able to do that, and he interpreted actually the king's death in 24 hours, which actually happened. And so that's what made Daniel so famous. And so what was that? That was not only a materialization of a spirit hand But we also have spirit writing, and we have precipitation of that writing that took place from some what source it came from. It could have come from the dyes and the pigments that were in the fabrics in the room, from the curtains, from the clothing. There might have been paints in the room. We don't know. But we know that it precipitated onto a wall. So that's a beautiful example of precipitation and spirit writing. And another very interesting one, when you think about the religion of Mormonism, the Book of Mormon appeared, it had to be dug up from the ground because these were golden plates with Egyptian hieroglyphs on them. And that's what the angel Moroni told Joseph Smith, that he needed to interpret these for his people, to lead his people to their great state of Mormonism. So those are some really interesting, very ancient examples of spirit writing and precipitation that I think your listeners will be very interested in hearing about. So,
and you did mention you're writing a book on this.
I am. I'm writing a book that covers exactly what I'm talking to you about, which is the ancient perspective, the perspective from the 1800s, the perspective from early 1900s, mid-1900s, modern-day mediumship, and where is this phenomena going today? And I will be including, I have a tremendous collection of beautiful photographs from all these different seances that I've attended, friends that have received these precipitated images. I've taken lots of pictures and did a lot of documentation. So I'm going to create a book around that, and probably even a DVD that is included, because it's heck of a lot easier and cheaper to include a DVD than it would be a full color book. But my book has got to be in color because the richness cannot be comprehended by black and white. You must see the precipitated works in full color.
Wow, I'm really excited. And now our listener might be listening to this in the year 2020, and this book might be already done. So as a reminder, go to We Don't Die Radio, episode 185, and at the time that the book's ready, there'll be a live link to have.
Wonderful. I'll tell you what's interesting is I think where this phenomena is going, from our friends in different mediumistic circles around the world, we know that there's a new form of energy being manipulated by the world of spirit. It is non-ectoplasmic based. Have you heard this?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
We haven't talked about it on the show, but I personally have heard of it.
Wonderful. Well, there's a couple of different names for that type of energy. I guess one hasn't stepped to the forefront as a coined term. But what I am seeing is one of my dear friends, I'm going to mention her name, and I think some of your listeners in England probably will recognize her, Sandy Ingham. And she is a beautiful spiritual artist who will draw your loved ones and even your spirit guides in the spirit world of life. And she goes into an altered state, and her spirit guide, Leo, will come through and begin to draw your loved ones on the beautiful parchment that she has. And then this whole process is being beamed onto a wall in the churches or in the theaters where the demonstration is taking place. And she typically has a fellow or friend medium that is demonstrating, connecting with the same spirit that's being drawn by Sandy. And so there's a double connection on the platform. So it's a beautiful evening. Spirit told me a little over 2 years ago, you must go to England. There's someone we need you to meet. And I thought, well, what could I possibly do for anybody in England? I'm just me over here in Florida. And I said, well, I am interested to go and experience this gentleman named Stuart Alexander. I've heard many good things. I would really like to experience his seances. And everything fell into place. I went to Calvary Hill. I was able to experience the last public demonstration by Stuart Alexander at this beautiful retreat center in England. And one of the attendees was Sandy Ingham, and we hit it off instantly. And I started to share with her I had brought a stack of my precipitated pictures and cards that I had received over the years, because I was trying to see if I could find anybody at this retreat that had heard of any precipitation mediums in England or Europe or abroad that might be doing this type of work, because I needed it for my research.
Right.
No one had ever heard about it. They were all just kind of in shock. A lot of people didn't even believe it. A lot of people didn't believe it was real, honestly. But Sandy realized the power of this phenomena, and she realized it was real and legitimate. And we became really good friends. As I came back home, I set up a few Skype calls, and I taught her how to begin sitting for this phenomena. And within a couple of weeks, she began to experience phenomena occurring on her card and paper that she sat with. And then her guide told her, we're not going to work with you that way. We want you to put the basket down. We're going to work with you a different way. Trust us. Within about 6 or 8 months, when she would be drawing, actually it was afterwards, she didn't hear it till after this was done, people said, that's so uncanny. You drew the color, you captured the color of my loved one's eyes. That was spot on. And she said, no, that's impossible. You must have saw something wrong. I only use a black charcoal and a piece of white paper. And they said, no, you put color in. We saw the color on the projected image. And she said, that's impossible. Well, she started noticing that from time to time, color would begin to appear in the projected image on the wall, but there was no color on the canvas. She talked to her guide, and her guide said, yes, we are. It's much easier for us to precipitate and change the projected image onto the wall. We can work with light and change the light frequency much easier than we can creating physical precipitate onto your canvas. And she thought, okay, well, that's interesting. So she began to notify the audiences that, please, if you see color appearing, I do not use color, but I would like to see if this phenomenon is really happening. She started seeing it from time to time. It typically would happen in one church in particular, and I think that's spiritually interesting because there must be some sort of an energetic or vortex of energy, a foundation that's been built up in that church that allows that phenomenon to strongly come forward. Before I go forward with the story, an interesting aside is, about that time I found a very old article, Spirit must have guided me to it, about the Bang sisters. When the Bang sisters would precipitate their physical paintings in the public, they would do it using sunlight. They would place the canvas in the window and sun would pour through the canvas, 2 canvases to be specific, and the picture would begin to appear almost like smoke, and it would build and it would form and fade into a beautiful expression and appearance on the canvas. And they would call them sun paintings. So isn't it interesting that this precipitation that's taking place with Sandy Ingham through her guide was taking place with projected light, very powerful light. What is sunlight? Very powerful light. So there's something within the phenomena of light that is useful for the world of spirit for precipitation in certain mediums, in certain mediumistic demonstrations.
So
now,
great.
About 9 months ago, a gentleman received a beautiful drawing from Sandy at a public demonstration. By the time he got home, there was flesh tones in the cheeks of his drawing that were not there when he picked it up.
Oh,
So
my
that
goodness.
is physical precipitation taking place after the fact. It has since begun to happen to other people who are taking their images home. They're suddenly getting small amounts of colors appearing on their canvas. So that is a new phase with Sandy, and in a way, it's hearkening us back to the days of the Bang sisters when precipitation was happening after the paintings would go home to the recipient. That was one of a very common phenomena that took place with the Bang sisters. The Bang sisters would have pictures that would precipitate and materialize. The eyes would be closed. By the time the painting got home with the recipient, the eyes would be open. Or
Oh, my gosh.
when the painting would come forward with the Bang sisters, and your lovely, say, your grandmother, and she had this beautiful hairstyle in the picture that you never recognized, and it probably wasn't very flattering in your humble opinion at that time in that era, and you remembered her with a specific hairstyle, you could say to the Bang sisters, I'm sorry, but I don't really appreciate that hairstyle of my loved one in spirit that's precipitated. It's not very conservative. It's a little too flamboyant. Do you think that you could change it? Well, the Bang sisters would tell the recipient who had the picture at their home, you sit on this date at this time, think of your loved one, think of the style of hair or the style of clothing or the missing piece of estate jewelry that's not in the picture. We will think of your loved one as well, and we will see what we can do. And within that short period of time of sitting, the family heirloom would appear in the picture, a new style of clothing would appear in the picture, a missing child that for whatever reason hadn't originally appeared in the picture now appears in the picture. The hairstyle changes in the picture. That is truly spectacular types of phenomena, and it's not miraculous. Once again, it's just mediums and the world of spirit working together to manipulate universal natural laws to cause a physical, spiritual effect in our dimension. And so Sandy Ingham is reaching a new level in her mediumship that not one person have I heard of in the world has been able to achieve since the Bang Sisters of the early 1900s.
Wow. And I did
It's
have
really
an
spectacular.
interview with Sandy Ingham and
Well, I'll make that happen. She's a lovely lady.
oh no,
and
we have
sure
it.
she'd love to.
No, I did it.
Wonderful.
It's already been
Wonderful,
done.
wonderful.
And when I interviewed her, I always look for goosebumps, when I really feel like inspired or, get that sensation. And 18 times while I talked to her, I got the goosebumps like, oh my gosh. So I don't remember what episode number it is. I'll include it in the description of this.
Beautiful.
But really great. Kevin, we have to wrap this up because we've gone a little over, but every second has counted. It's been so wonderful. Thank you
so much.
And I just want more. I wish the book was in my hand right now, and I know you're a busy man, but you have to schedule time for it. Yeah, I got to schedule time for it because this is really great. It's just really showing with spirit everything is possible, and when you start having these kind of experiences, it's like you just can't deny that we don't die. It's all real.
That's so true, and the work that you're doing, Sandra, is so important. You are a healer. You may think you're just an interviewer. You may think you're just a researcher and a talk show host, but you truly are a healer. Even those of us who call ourselves mediums and ministers, what do we do at the very basic level? We are healing people,
yes.
And because you have created this space that is allowing people to transform their lives to greatness. That's my favorite saying every Sunday in my church. We are here to create a space that transforms lives to greatness. And every single medium, psychic, healer, minister, metaphysician, talk show host, researcher, dabbler, we are creating the vibration of love that creates healing for the listener, for the public that's walking into our doors. And we're trying to provide evidence and facts so that hopefully it heals their soul and it uplifts their soul. It inspires them to start looking and to consider what is possible. I know the spirit world is all around us. I know that there is life after death. I no longer believe, hope, and pray like I used to in my former religious upbringing. I know 100%. And it's people like you and I and all of our colleagues around the world that are doing this, that we spread this light. We create a network around the planet. We are all so important, and we should never doubt that what we do is not critically important to the light potential and frequency of this planet. We do great work as light workers, and I just applaud all of our fellow light workers and you, Sandra. So thank you for your time today as well.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you to you and all you're doing, and for our listener who's been here this past over an hour. Just thank you. Sure. Thank you for giving us both your time.
You're very welcome, my dear.
Yeah, we're out to transform lives. There's a whole new way of living life when you really know to your core that we don't die. Life after death is real. It means you are here for a reason on planet Earth, my friend. And and what a joyous ride it can be with these kind of things. Oh, thank you. Just lastly, just for our listener, we have been talking to the wonderful Reverend Kevin Lee, coming to us from Florida. His website is kevinleemedium.com, or you can visit his chapel at metaphysicalchapel.com. And just a quick reminder, feel free to join our group on Facebook, We Don't Die Listeners, and I do have some of the pictures Kevin Lee spoke about of some of these cards, which is Precipitation Mediumship. Fantastic. Go to WeDon'tDieRadio.com, check out past episodes, join the Insiders Club, which basically is, you get a free copy of my book and also great audio called How to Survive Grief and more things. And if you're free in September 2017, go to afterlifestudies.org and you can find out about the great symposium. So in closing, my name is Sandra Champlain, and I've been your host on We Don't Die Radio. And I do believe that life is an education for the soul, and that your life here on earth is important. So I really want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.